we need a deeper understanding of what it is to be conservative, to understand the principles of personal freedom. And I can't think of anyone better to help us do that than the man who literally wrote the book on how to build a fairer, happier, and more prosperous America. We're delighted to have with us tonight Arthur Brooks. Mr. Brooks is president of the American Enterprise Institute, and he's also the Beth and Ravenel Curry Scholar in Free Enterprise at AEI. Immediately before joining AEI, Brooks was the Lewis A. Bantle Professor of Business and Government at Syracuse University, where he taught economics and entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship. He's the author of 11 books, including this one, and hundreds of articles on topics including the role of government, fairness, economic opportunity, happiness, and the morality of free enterprise. He's a frequent guest on national television, you saw a few of those examples, and radio talk shows, and has been widely published in publications including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. Arthur holds a PhD in policy analysis from the Rand Graduate School. He holds an MA in economics from Florida Atlantic University and a BA in economics from Thomas Edison State College. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Arthur Brooks to the podium.
Thank you, Dave. What an honor to be with you. I've been looking forward to this. This is a great night for me. I have, and by the way, Pastor Moore, congratulations on this honor. It's a delight to be with you. For those of us in Washington, D.C., where I live, so you don't have to, we look forward to coming to an honest, good place like Kansas. And particularly for me, I was telling the folks that I was having dinner with tonight that I have these Kansas roots. My great-great-grandfather, John Janes, was the sheriff of Olathe. Indeed, yes, indeed. Well, and there's a story here. There's a story. It was when he was elected sheriff in his early 20s, and shortly after election, Quantrill's Raiders came to town. And the first thing they did was to get horribly drunk and string up the sheriff, my great-great-grandfather. In their drunkenness, they forgot to tie his hands. And after they left, he untied himself, let himself back down, and went on with his life. Not long thereafter, he married. They had a son, my great-grandfather, and all the way down to me. I stand before you today thanks to liquor. But I digress already. I want to talk to you tonight about happiness. And if you're watching the presidential campaign, and many of you are, I suppose that you've heard the rumor that there's an election at our throats again. You know there's not a whole lot of happiness floating around out there. And that's what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about optimism. And it's been on my mind. Not long ago, and Pastor Moore tells us that we have to start with a story. So, true story. Not long ago, my wife and I were attending a parent-teacher conference that was going sadly wrong. Now, again, this is about education, this is about public policy, but it's really about optimism. You'll see that here in a second. One of our teenage sons was underperforming in grades. And it was tense, I have to say. Many of you, don't act like this hasn't happened to you. So we got in the car and we were on the drive home. I was driving and there was an icy silence. And finally my wife breaks the silence and says, "Here's how we need to think about it. At least we know he's not cheating." That's, my friends, that's an optimist. Now, why do I bring it up? Because we need more of that in our movement. We need more of that in the free enterprise movement. I look at the candidates and they look like they're on a death march. It's one piece of pessimistic rhetoric after another. The point I'm going to try to make to you tonight, and I'm so honored to be here to do it, because why? Because what you do here in Kansas, we see in Washington, D.C. The tone you set for school choice and free enterprise here in Kansas is what we see in the United States. Remember, the conservative movement is a bottom-up movement. The left is top-down. The right is bottom up, especially at its best. And that means that what you do here, we will see in Washington, D.C. And we take great courage and solace from what's going on here. So the message of optimism, to the extent that we can embed it at the level of the states that are doing this important policy work, will get through to candidates and policymakers. It will get through to the leaders of this great country. So what I'm going to try to do is to do two things in the next few minutes. Number one, I'm going to make the case for happiness and optimism, and then I'm going to tell you how I think we can do it as a political and policy movement. How we can base our ideas on joy. Now, happiness is really at the base of the modern conservative movement. I'm in the modern conservative movement because of happiness, really. As I mentioned, I have family roots here in Kansas, but I grew up in Seattle, Washington, a hotbed of right-wing thinking. I'm the only one in my even extended family that had these strange free market proclivities. Let me tell you, Thanksgiving dinner in my house is super fun. And the first presidential election I ever paid attention to as a high school kid, was 1980. When Ronald Reagan was elected. And it was a tough time for anybody who liked Ronald Reagan. I didn't really have strong views. I heard from everybody in my family and friends and neighbors and everybody that Ronald Reagan was terrible for poor people and was going to get us into a war. I mean, not much to like there. But I have to say, there was something about him. I would listen to him and I had this idea, he loves me. Huh. I mean, he didn't know me. I was just a working class kid in Seattle, but he seemed to love me a little. And he seemed to be happy about the country. And the other guy was depressed all the time and talking about malaise. And I thought, I want the happy one, right? And furthermore, as he got elected and he was marching through his policy agenda, I was listening to his ideas, and what we remember today as his most famous speeches. I mean, what's Reagan's most famous speech? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Dour, threatening. Standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, telling the leader of the Soviet Empire to tear down the Berlin Wall. But you know what I remember? The next thing he said was a joke. It was a great joke. I'm going to tell you the joke, it's so good. This is a Reagan joke. And this is the thing that really stuck in my head and made me like him and brought me into the movement. See, everybody knew in those days that in Russia, if you wanted a private car, you had to wait 10 years for it. I mean, everybody knew that. That was popular wisdom. Reagan said, there was a guy, a factory worker, he was a car enthusiast. He had pictures of cars all over his bedroom. He dreamed day and night about getting his own car. He saved up his money, and after 30 years, he finally had enough money. He went to the car dealer, he plunked it on and said, I want my car. The car dealer said, it'll be here in 10 years. The guy said, morning or afternoon? The car dealer said, what difference does it make? It's 10 years. And the guy said, the plumber's coming in the morning. You know? That's what I remember. That's why I'm a conservative. I mean, I know it's shallow, but I want good feelings. I want love. I want brotherhood. I want people to feel like they care about each other and want to have a good time. And that's where the conservative movement's got to be. Little piece of research to share with you. There are a number of studies that look at how the happiness of leaders is judged by followers. And there are two numbers for you to think of. Actually, it's the same number. The number 30 to get in your head here. The studies show very compellingly that happy leaders stimulate the effectiveness of the followers in private corporations by 30% more than unhappy leaders, controlling for all of the variables, number one. Number two, happy leaders are considered to be 30% more effective by their followers than equally formed unhappy leaders. What does this mean? This means that happy leaders make people better and are considered to be better leaders. It's a winner for everybody. Happiness is cheap. Happiness is free. It's a win-win for society. And this should be our strategy. Now you got to ask yourself, why is it that the political system is stuck in these competing pessimisms, the iron cage of negativity right now? That's because unhappiness works really hot. It's something that works in the moment, but we got to break out. An unhappiness strategy of insulting each other and talking about how rotten the country is and how we're losing everything, it doesn't work after 2 or 3 weeks, certainly not after 2 or 3 months. We're in the fight for decades. And if we don't actually start talking like we love the country and we love each other and we want to have a good time, we're going to lose. And we're not going to have any fun either. So let's get it done. How do we do it? How do we actually become the movement of happiness again? Now you got to ask yourself, you can't just say, I mean it seems almost idiotic to say, let's just be happy, right? Can you just do that? Is it that simple? Just be happy? I've studied this for years. Before I came to AEI, I was a professor at Syracuse University, and my main area of study was human happiness. And I always had this question. If I act happy, will I get happier? Well, there's research on this. I want to fill you in. It's actually useful to us. It starts off in the late 19th century, believe it or not, with a French physiologist by the name of Duchenne. Now, what was Duchenne's area of expertise? It was the human smile. And Duchenne cataloged all the forms of human smiles. Turns out there are 19. Okay, you didn't know that. And only one of them is associated with true human happiness. 19 smiles, one is happiness. Now think about it. All the smiles that aren't happy, that's the flight attendant smile, right? You know that, how that works, right? Only one of them, it's called the Duchenne smile, after this physiologist, is associated with true human happiness. Now how do you distinguish it? I'm going to tell you how. There are 2 tiny little muscles underneath your eyes. They're called the orbicularis oculi muscles. What they give you is crow's feet, actually. And when you see somebody who's smiling at you and you see the crow's feet, that's the orbicularis oculi muscles working, and that means true happiness. If you want to know if somebody's really happy and you're looking at them, don't look at the mouth. Look at the eyes. That's how you know. Okay, why do I bring it up? Because in 1993, 100 years later, researchers asked, if I can stimulate the orbicularis oculi muscles, will it actually stimulate the brain to have greater sensations of happiness? So they did it. They got a bunch of volunteers and they actually made them sit and look at the camera and for 20 seconds grin like a lunatic, right? And then they hooked electrodes up to their head to see what part of their brains were being stimulated, and sure enough, the parts of the brains of our brains that are associated with happiness are stimulated by those tiny little muscles. What does it tell us? Fool your brain. Act happy, you will get happier. Don't feel happy? Fake it. That's our secret. If we start faking happiness, even if we don't feel it, we feel happier, we're a happier movement, we start to win. People want to follow happier leaders. So then the question is this: is it just about grinning all the time? No. We have to find other ways that we act like happy people. What do happy people do? Happy people do 2 things. Happy leaders have 2 things in common. Right? Number 1, what do happy leaders all do? They serve others. Think about it. When somebody's serving others, they're always happy. And when they're happy, they're always serving others. The most selfish people are always unhappy. You've seen this a lot. There's a whole concept of servant leadership. Those of you who are Christians like me, we talk about it constantly. Servant leadership. It's a big deal, right? It's a big deal because it's scientifically robust. There's a lot of work out there that talks about the association between serving other people and becoming authentically happy. Some of the studies are crazy, as a matter of fact. I'll tell you about one. This is one from the late 1990s at the Duke School of Public Health, where researchers were asking a group of senior citizens to, get this, massage babies. You can get tenure for anything. Right? And so they're giving, and half of the senior citizens were playing board games, the other half were massaging the babies. Why? Because they wanted to look at stress hormones and happiness. Not of the babies, of the senior citizens who were giving the little babies the massages. And what do they find? They found that when you just did this tiny little act of kindness for which you couldn't be thanked or rewarded, your stress hormones fell by 50%. relative to the control group. I give you this one study. There's study after study that shows that when people serve others, they make themselves happier. Regarding education reform, by the way, the best studies show that when we ask people to help others with their studies, in other words, when you ask as a part of an enlightened schooling effort, older kids to help younger kids with their work, the older kids get happier and stay happier. There's a secret for all of us in the way that we can apply it. Want to get happier? Serve others. Now, how do you apply this? A week and a half ago, I was having lunch with all of the Republicans in the Senate. Okay? Now, once a month they have lunch, and occasionally they bring in a guest speaker. It's a tense time in the U.S. Senate right now. And so basically they said, Majority Leader McConnell said to me, I'd like you to come in and speak for 20 minutes, and then we're going to go into private conference and kill each other. And I said, okay, so what am I going to talk about? I mean, it's a kind of an opportunity, but I didn't know quite exactly what to talk about. So I talked about what they can actually do to serve others. What do servant leaders do? Servant leaders fight for people. Who? People who support them? No. Servant leaders fight for people who need them, no matter who they support. So here's the assignment I gave to the senators, with appropriate humility, mind you, because I'm not an elected official. I said, try this. Next time you go back to your state, come back with 5 pictures. 5 pictures of people who can't or won't vote for you. Why? Because they're immigrants and they're not naturalized, or they're little kids, or they're left-wing Democrats. Okay? 5 pictures. And put them up in your office where you can see it, and they're right out in public view. And then the next morning when you come in, say a little prayer for each one of them, for him and her and him. And say, I am fighting for these people, and mean it. And when the widget manufacturers come and they want a special favor, they'll say, oh, Senator so-and-so, who are these people? And you say, these are the people I'm really fighting for. Then you'll be a true servant leader, if you can do it, and if you can mean it. And you know what? Each one of us can do that too. Who are we fighting for that needs us and who doesn't support us? Are we a movement dedicated to fighting for everybody, whether they vote like us or not? I think we are. I know you are. Let's make people see that. And then we'll be happier. And people will see it. And then we'll win. That's number 1. Number 2, the second practice of happy leaders. Gratitude. Expressing gratitude. Happy people are saying thank you all the time. It's amazing, actually. And there's a reason that it's so important. There's a psychologist at University of California, Riverside. Her name is Sonia Lyubomirsky. She's a wonderful social psychologist. And she does these experiments in which it's very simple. She asks people over 10 weeks to keep a list and to write down a list once a week of 5 items. Half of them are supposed to write the list of the 5 most salient current events. Okay? Well, it's like the war in so-and-so and such a place, and the economy and the stock market, etc. The other half are asked to make a list of things that they're grateful for. That's it. Once a week, every week for 10 weeks. And at the end, they're subjected to a battery of psychological tests. And what do you find? That grateful group, now again, this is treatment and control. This is random assignment here. These aren't people who are just generally more grateful. They're simply asked to keep a little list. Those that are keeping the list of their items of gratitude are 25% happier than the people who don't do it. People who are happy express gratitude. People who express gratitude, even if they don't feel grateful, get happier. This is our secret. We need to do it. When was the last time you heard a presidential candidate say with true honesty, I am so grateful that I'm being considered for the most important job in the greatest country in the history of the world? They don't look grateful. I mean, if I had to go to the Iowa State Fair and eat a fried stick of butter, I wouldn't be grateful either, mind you. But come on. How hard is it to express a little gratitude? It would do them a whole lot of good. And by the way, it would also transform the interlocutors, the people that are arguing with them. Here's how I learned that, by the way. Here's how I learned this principle. Years ago, when I was still a professor, I was beavering away in complete obscurity, which is what professors do. I was doing research that about 14 people would read. Technical stuff, mathematical stuff. And right after I got tenure, I wrote a book. And it was a book about charitable giving. And it simply asked, who gives more, conservatives or liberals? I know liberals say they give more, but who really gives more? Turns out conservatives give way more than liberals to every single cause, especially conservative Christian people give more. Okay, so I published the book. I mean, it's good research, it's statistically relevant, and it's robust and all these findings. And suddenly, to my utter befuddlement, I found myself on Rush Limbaugh's radio show, much to the consternation of my fellow faculty members and the administration and my relatives in Seattle. And I also started to get mail for the first time from people I'd never met. Some of it was full of adulation, but most of it was hate mail. And you know, I'm just a college professor. I'd never gotten hate mail before, except from students. And it was disconcerting, I have to say. And one day, this is Wednesday or something, I get this email comes in, and you know, I used to get enough, a small enough amount of email and read it all the time. And I was reading the email, and it starts off, "Dear Professor Brooks, you are a fraud," which I thought was an unpromising start. But it was a long email, and I started reading through it, and I realized that this email was a verse-by-verse refutation of every point in my book. I mean, every chapter, he critiqued every, you know, he's wrong on everything, to be sure, but he critiqued every chapter. And I couldn't get this thought out of my head. You know what I was thinking? He read my book. You know? So I wrote him back. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell him how grateful I am because he read my book. And I said, thank you. I mean, look, I just work in this kind of obscurity, and you never know if anybody's going to read your stuff. And I get your email, and you read it. It doesn't matter if I agree with you or not. I'm just so grateful to you for reading my book. And the whole tenor of the conversation changed. He writes me back immediately, and it was nice and kind of warm. And he said, you know, if you're ever in Dallas and you're giving a speech, I'd love to come see you and maybe meet you, right? I'm thinking, I mean, I'm probably going to get a Christmas card from this guy now, right? And I learned something that day, which is what social scientists have shown over and over and over again. You want to change the conversation? You want to change yourself? You want to change your soul a little bit? Say thank you. Express some gratitude. You want the DMV clerk who's surly to treat you better? An honest thank you, even if she doesn't deserve it. Imagine that. Crazy. Now, there are ways that each one of us in our work can apply this, and I want to tell you how I'm doing it every day now. I have this crazy job. I give 150 speeches a year. It's an incredible privilege, right? And I was thinking about this because I was rereading a very profound book that most of you have read but you've forgotten. It's by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's the most profound book with a terrible title ever written. Right? I mean, it's a guide to ethical living, but it sounds like it's a way to fool people into doing stuff that you want them to do, right? Okay, which is what turns a lot of people off. But it's a very beautiful book. And he has a story in this book about a magician named Howard Thurston. Howard Thurston was a famous magician in the 1920s, and he worked on Broadway. Back then, Broadway wasn't just these crazy lavish musicals. It was variety shows largely, and people would come in from the Midwest, these tourists, and they would go to these variety shows and they would go see Howard Thurston, famous magician, do the tricks he'd been doing every night for 40 years. Rabbit out of the hat, card tricks, making the ball and the cups disappear, all that stuff. Now, if you were Howard Thurston and there were a bunch of people, good God-fearing people come in from Kansas who've never seen it before, but you've been doing it for 40 years, you might say, what a bunch of rubes, you know? This is a drag. Okay, let's go beat the dead horse some more, right? That's not what Howard Thurston said. Howard Thurston had a little mantra. Howard Thurston used to say every day before he went out on stage, I am truly grateful for the people that are in these seats. Because it is because of them that I'm able to make my living doing something I truly love. I read that and I thought, you know what? Me too. And you know what else? Right at this second, I truly am grateful to you. because I'm making my living right now. It is an amazing thing. You make that possible. And for each one of us in this room, endowed with the blessings of leadership positions, we can look at a group of people, somebody in the next week or month, and we can say the same thing. And if we don't say it out loud, we can think it. Even if, by the way, they don't like us. Remember what it means to be a warrior in the free enterprise movement for others. It means standing up with truth even when people don't agree with you. And saying in your heart, thank God for you people who make it possible for me to live my moral mission every single day. I'm going to speak the truth and I'm going to give it to you, and you're my brothers and sisters. That's real gratitude, and that's what we can do in this movement. Where are we in America? You know, over the past 10 years, the greatest political disappointment to me was not the election of President Obama. He won fair and square, my friends. And you know why? You know why he deserved to win that election in 2008? I mean, look, I didn't vote for him because I disagree with him on policy. But you know why he deserved to win? Because he ran a campaign of unity and optimism. And America wants that. My disappointment is that the country has been governed on the basis of division and pessimism since that time. Unity and optimism was the promise. Division and pessimism is what we get. Right? Now, are we partially to blame for that, those of us on the political right? Yeah, absolutely. But we're in a paradigm of competing pessimisms, and we have been for 7 years. We can stay in that. We can double down. We can get more unhappy. We can have competing apocalyptic scenarios if we want. Oh, you have 4 horsemen? I have 5 horsemen of the apocalypse. You want that? No. We got to break out. How do you break out? You break out like Reagan broke out 5 months before Election Day in 1980. I didn't pay attention to it at the time, but what happened? He accepted the nomination for the Republican candidacy for the presidency in Detroit at the Republican National Convention, and he gave a speech, and he said one word 89 times in that speech, and that word was people. If we're fighting for people with love in our hearts, then we break out of the paradigm of competing pessimisms. We break out with happiness. We express our happiness by copying what happy leaders have always done, being servants, expressing gratitude. And then you know what happens? We win. But more important than winning is we have a good time saving this country. There is no greater privilege than the work that my institution, the American Enterprise Institute, and the great Kansas Policy Institute do to save our country. What a privilege for which we should be thankful. And you know what else? And these are my final words. For the work that you do, the wonderful support you give this great organization that provides us courage in Washington, I want to tell you, thank you for what you're doing, and God bless all your work.